She was already in the saddle when the cowboy told her she was free to leave. So why did her hands start shaking? The leather creaked under her as she pulled the reins tight, the wind snapping against the barn doors behind her, dust stinging her eyes. His voice came low, steady, like it had been waiting there all along. Ride east. No anger, no step forward, just space, and a choice she hadn't expected to have. She didn't turn around, but something in her chest did. If that moment caught your breath, stay with me. The wind came hard off the flats that night, dragging sand across the yard like something alive. It rattled the loose boards on the barn and made the gate creak slow and steady, back and forth, back and forth. Dry Creek Valley didn't sleep much when the wind turned like that. It just waited. Elena Shaw stood in the shadow of the stable, her hand wrapped tight around a worn cloth bag. The fabric had thinned at the corners from years of use. Inside it, there wasn't much. A spare dress, a folded photograph with the edges curling inward, and a small tin of coins that clicked softly when she moved. She paused, listening. From the main house, no light. The windows stayed dark. No voices, no footsteps. Just the low hum of wind sliding through the cracks in the wood and the distant clang of something metal shifting out by the fence line. She stepped forward. The ground was packed hard beneath her boots, the kind of dirt that held the day's heat long after sunset. Her skirt brushed against her legs as she crossed the yard, careful to keep to the darker patches where the moon didn't reach. The horse lifted its head the moment she came close. "Easy," she whispered, her voice barely carried, swallowed by the wind. She reached for the bridle, her fingers brushing the leather strap. It was cold. Everything felt cold, even the air inside her lungs. She worked slow. No sudden movements. The buckle gave a soft click, and she froze, waiting. Nothing, only the wind again. Elena exhaled, just a little, and slipped the bridle over the horse's head. The animal shifted once, then settled. She stroked its neck, feeling the warmth beneath the hide, the steady life there. Something about that steadiness made her hesitate. Not now. She tightened her grip and led the horse toward the open side of the stable. The yard stretched ahead, pale under the thin moonlight. Beyond it, the ridge rose dark and uneven, cutting the sky in half. That was the way out. She reached the mounting post and set her bag against it. Her hands moved faster now, less careful. One foot found the stirrup. She gathered her skirt, ready to pull herself up. "You won't make it past the ridge before sunrise." The voice came from behind her, low, even, close enough that it didn't need to be raised. Elena's foot slipped. She turned. For a second, she saw nothing but shadow. Then a shape moved near the fence line, stepping forward into the pale wash of moonlight. Rowan Hale. He wasn't in a hurry. One step, then another. His coat hung open, shifting with the wind. No hat, no lantern. Just his eyes fixed on her like he'd been standing there a long while. Elena didn't speak. Her hand tightened around the saddle. Rowan stopped a few feet away. Not close enough to touch. Not far enough to pretend he wasn't part of it. "You picked a rough night," he said. The gate behind him creaked again, slow and hollow. Elena swallowed. "I'll take my chances." He gave a small nod, like he'd expected that answer. "The canyon floods when the wind turns east," he said. "Trail washes out. You won't see it in the dark. That's not your concern." "No," he said, "it isn't." Silence stretched between them, the kind that didn't rush to fill itself. Elena searched his face for something, anger maybe or a warning, but there was nothing there she could hold on to. Just that same steady look, like he was watching a storm roll in and had already decided not to step out of its way. You knew, she said finally. Rowan didn't ask what she meant. You've been packing light for 3 days, he said. Stopped eating at supper. Kept your boots by the bed instead of under it. Elena's throat tightened. And you didn't say anything. He shrugged, just a little. Didn't figure it was mine to say. The horse shifted again, pulling slightly against her hand. Elena steadied it, her fingers brushing the reins. You could have locked the door, she said. I could have. You could have taken the saddle. I could have done that too. The wind pushed harder, sending a swirl of dust across the yard. It stung her eyes, but she didn't look away. Why didn't you? She asked. Rowan glanced past her, toward the ridge, then back again. Because if you're going, he said, it ought to be your decision. Elena felt something catch in her chest, quick and sharp. She didn't trust it. Not here. Not with him. She turned back to the horse, placing her foot in the stirrup again. This time she didn't hesitate. She pulled herself up, settling into the saddle with a practiced motion. The leather creaked under her weight. From up there, the yard looked different, smaller, like something she could leave behind if she just pushed forward hard enough. Rowan stepped aside, not in a rush, just enough to clear the path. He didn't reach for the reins, didn't lift a hand, didn't say her name. Elena gathered the leather straps, her knuckles pale against the dark. The horse stamped once, ready. She looked at him one last time. You're not going to stop me, she said. Rowan met her gaze. No, he said. Another pause. Just don't expect the valley to be kinder than I was. It wasn't a threat. It didn't sound like one. That was what made it linger. Elena turned the horse toward the open stretch beyond the yard. The ridge waited, dark and uncertain. The wind pressed against her back, urging her forward. She tightened her grip. Then she rode. The gate creaked behind her. The barn faded into shadow. The house stood still and silent, as if it had never held anyone at all. Rowan Hale remained where he was, a lone figure against the shifting dust, watching her disappear into the night. And he did not follow. By morning, the wind had settled into a low, steady breath across the valley. The sky came up pale over Dry Creek, thin light stretching across the yard like it was unsure whether to stay. Elena was back before the sun cleared the ridge. The horse slowed on its own as it neared the barn, hooves dull against the packed earth. She didn't rush it, didn't look toward the house right away. Her shoulders stayed straight, but her hands rested quiet now, no longer tight around the reins. Rowan was already out by the fence, a hammer in one hand, a loose plank at his feet. He tapped the nail once, then again, as if he'd been working there all morning. He didn't turn when she rode in, not at first. Elena dismounted without a word. Her boots hit the ground softer than the night before. She led the horse back into the shade of the stable and slipped the bridle off, fingers slower this time. Only then did Rowan glance over. Their eyes met for a second. No questions, no surprise. He set the hammer down on the post. There's coffee inside, he said, still warm. Elena nodded once, though she hadn't asked. She picked up her bag from the saddle. It felt lighter now, or maybe she just wasn't holding it the same way. Inside, the house smelled faintly of wood smoke and something bitter from the stovetop. A tin coffee pot sat near the edge, a chipped enamel cup beside it. The kind of cup that had been dropped more than once and kept anyway. Elena poured slowly. The liquid hit the metal with a soft echo. She stood there for a while, cup in both hands, watching the steam rise. The door behind her stayed open, letting the morning drift in. Dust, light, the faint sound of Rowan's hammer again outside. No lock on the door. She noticed that now. The hallway to her room was quiet. Her boots still sat where she'd left them by the bed. The blanket folded tight. Nothing disturbed. Like she had never gone. She set the cup down untouched. Out in town, word had already started to move. By midday, Mrs. Dillard leaned half her weight across the counter of the general store, her voice low but not low enough. "I heard she tried to run," she said, folding a receipt between her fingers. "Didn't get far, though." A man by the flour sacks let out a breath through his nose. "Some folks don't know when they've got it easy." "Easy?" Mrs. Dillard's mouth thinned. "A woman like that always brings trouble. You mark my words." Sheriff Boone Carter stood near the doorway, one shoulder against the frame. He didn't speak, just listened. His eyes stayed on the road outside, where the dust hadn't quite settled from the morning wagons. Back at the ranch, Elena kept to the edges of things. She moved through the kitchen, then out to the yard, then back again. Not restless, just careful, like she was learning the space all over again. Rowan didn't follow her. He worked the fence line, checked the water trough, repaired a hinge on the gate that had been dragging for weeks. Each task done steady, without looking over his shoulder. At supper, he sat at the far end of the table. A plate for him, a plate for her. Bread wrapped in cloth between them. No blessing said out loud. Just the quiet scrape of chair legs and the soft clink of metal against tin. Elena ate slowly. Halfway through, she looked up. "You left the gate unlatched last night," she said. Rowan didn't stop chewing. "I know. You knew I'd take a horse, huh?" "I figured. And you still didn't—" She stopped herself. Rowan set his fork down. "Not hard. Just enough." "I meant what I said," he replied. "You can leave any time." Elena held his gaze a second longer, searching for something that wasn't there. No bargain, no catch. She looked back down at her plate. After supper, she washed her own cup, dried it, set it back in the same place. Rowan stepped out onto the porch, boots heavy on the boards, then quiet again. That night, Elena lay awake longer than she meant to. The window beside her bed rattled once when the wind shifted, then stilled. The room felt bigger than before, or emptier. She couldn't tell which. Her bag sat by the door, still packed. She didn't touch it. Outside, somewhere beyond the barn, a horse shifted its weight. A low sound, then silence again. Elena turned onto her side, pulling the blanket up just enough to cover her shoulder. She closed her eyes. But sleep didn't come easy. Not when the door stayed open. Not when no one tried to close it. Morning came thin and quiet. A pale strip of light slid across the floorboards and stopped just short of Elena's boots. She sat on the edge of the bed, already dressed, hands resting still in her lap. The house hadn't stirred yet. No footsteps. No clatter from the kitchen. Only the soft tick of the stove cooling. She stood and reached for her bag. It was where she left it. Same fold in the fabric. Same weight. Nothing added. Nothing taken. Outside, the air carried a faint chill. The kind that came just before the sun took hold of the valley. A low line of clouds hung over the ridge, breaking the sky into strips of gray and gold. Elena stepped onto the porch. Rowan was in the yard, back turned, sleeves rolled. He worked at the trough, pouring water from a dented bucket, one steady motion after another. The metal handle creaked each time he lifted it. He didn't look up. She watched him a moment longer than she meant to. Then she moved. The ground felt firmer this morning, less like something she had to sneak across, more like something that belonged to the day. She made it halfway to the barn, when the horse shifted again. Same one from the night before. It let out a low breath, almost like it recognized her. Elena. She stopped. Rowan's voice carried across the yard. Not loud, just enough. She turned. He was still by the trough, one hand resting on the rim. Water spilled over the side and darkened the dirt beneath. "You'll want a better saddle if you're riding far," he said. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm not riding." He nodded once, like that made sense. "Still worth fixing the strap," he replied. "It's worn through on the left side." Elena didn't answer. She stepped into the barn instead. The smell of hay and leather settled around her. A beam of light cut through the slats, catching dust in the air. The saddle sat where she'd left it. She reached out and flipped the strap over. It was worn, just like he said. Her fingers lingered there. She didn't fix it. Instead, she turned back toward the yard. Rowan had moved on to the fence. Hammer in hand again, same rhythm as yesterday. Tap, pause, tap. Elena walked past him this time, toward the small shed near the back. Inside, the tools hung in neat rows, rope coiled tight. A lantern with a cracked glass side sat on a hook. Beneath it, a folded map lay tucked under a tin weight. She pulled it free, unfolded it. Dry Creek Valley stretched out in rough lines and faded ink. The ridge marked clear, the canyon beyond it darker, shaded in heavy strokes. There were notes in the margins. Short ones. Loose ground here. Water runs after rain. Trail splits. Stay left. Elena traced one line with her finger. East. She folded the map again, slower this time. When she stepped back outside, the yard looked different. Or maybe she did. Rowan had finished with the fence. He stood now near the hitching post, wiping his hands on a cloth. His coat hung over the rail. The wind lifted one sleeve, then let it fall again. He didn't ask where she'd been. Didn't ask what she was holding. Instead, he walked past her, toward the barn. "There's a horse already saddled," he said. "Water in the pack. Enough for 2 days." Elena turned sharply. "You planned this." Rowan paused, one hand on the barn door. "I planned for the possibility," he said. She stepped closer. "You're just going to let me walk out again, if that's what you decide." Her grip tightened on the folded map. "And if I don't come back?" Rowan pushed the door open. Light spilled into the barn behind him. "Then you don't come back." Simple as that. No weight added. No blame. Elena searched his face again, harder this time, looking for the edge, the catch, the thing that would make sense of it. It wasn't there. Only that same steady look, like he'd already accepted whatever came next. The horse stood ready, saddle tightened, bedroll secured, a small canteen tied to the side, worn smooth from use, everything in place. Elena moved without thinking. She set her foot in the stirrup, pulled herself up. The leather held this time, strong, balanced. Rowan stepped back again, giving her the path. The gate stood open. Wind brushed through it, carrying the smell of dry grass and distant water. Elena looked ahead. Then she rode. The valley stretched out wide and empty. No voices behind her. No hooves following. Just the steady rhythm beneath her and the sound of the wind moving across open land. She didn't rush, didn't look back. Not until she reached the ridge. The land dropped away on the other side. The canyon cut deep, shadows pooling at the bottom. The trail narrowed there just like the map showed. Elena slowed the horse. Her hands loosened on the reins. No one behind her. No one ahead. Just space. For the first time, it didn't feel like escape. It felt like a question. She sat there a long while, the wind pulling at her sleeves, the sun rising higher behind her. Then she looked down at the map, at the line she had traced, at the place where the ink grew faint, as if whoever drew it hadn't gone much farther. Elena folded it again. Careful this time. Then she turned the horse, back toward the valley, back toward the place where no one had tried to keep her, and for reasons she didn't yet name, she rode back. The valley looked different from that direction. The ridge no longer blocked the sky. It opened it. Light spread wider, softer, catching the tops of the fences and the roof of the barn in a dull gold that hadn't been there when she left. Elena didn't hurry. The horse picked its own pace, steady and unbothered, as if it had known all along where it would end up. The wind had dropped to almost nothing. Only the faint sound of leather shifting and the quiet rhythm of hooves kept her company. When the ranch came into view, Rowan was by the fence again. Same place, different light. He stood with one foot braced against the lower rail, tightening a length of wire. His sleeves were rolled. Dust clung to his boots. The hammer hung loose at his side. He didn't turn right away. Elena slowed the horse near the gate. The hinges gave a low groan when she pushed it open. The sound carried across the yard. That was when he looked up. Their eyes met. No surprise. No relief. Just a quiet acknowledgement, like seeing something return to where it had been set aside. Elena swung down from the saddle. Her boots hit the ground with a soft thud. She didn't tie the horse, didn't move toward the house. She just stood there. Rowan finished with the wire before he spoke. He pressed it once with his thumb, testing the tension, then let his hand fall away. "You found the ridge," he said. Elena nodded. "The canyon? I saw it." He gave a short nod, like that was enough. Silence settled between them. Not heavy, just there. Elena shifted her weight slightly. The folded map rested in her hand, edges worn softer now. She didn't offer it back. "I didn't come back because I had nowhere to go," she said. Rowan didn't interrupt. "I came back because I chose this place." The words hung in the open air, simple and clear. He studied her a moment. Not searching, just taking in what was said. Then he nodded once. "All right." No questions. No conditions. He bent to pick up the hammer again, as if the matter had already found its place. Elena stood a second longer, waiting for something else. A reason. A demand. Anything that would make it feel like a transaction. Nothing came. She turned toward the house. The screen door creaked when she pushed it open. Inside, the same quiet waited, the same table, the same cup by the stove. She set the map down near the edge of the counter. Not hidden, not returned. Just there. By midday, the rhythm shifted. Rowan worked the far side of the field, repairing a broken post. Elena carried water from the well, the bucket heavier than she remembered. The rope left faint marks on her palm, thin lines that faded after a few minutes. No one told her where to go, no one asked her to stay. They moved around each other like that for hours. Not close, not distant. Just aware. At supper, the chairs scraped the floor in the same places. The bread sat wrapped in cloth again. This time, Elena reached for it first, tearing off a piece and setting it near Rowan's plate without thinking. He noticed. Didn't say anything. Just moved his hand slightly so it wouldn't fall. Later, when she stood to clear the table, Rowan was already at the sink. He rinsed his plate, set it aside, and stepped back without brushing against her. A small space left open. Elena filled it. That night, the lamp burned lower. The wind didn't come back. The house settled into a quieter kind of silence, one that didn't press against the walls. Outside, somewhere near the fence line, a horse shifted again. Inside, Elena paused by the doorway to her room. The bag still sat where she left it, still packed. She looked at it for a long moment, then reached down, not to carry it, but to loosen the knot. Cloth folded back. The photograph slipped into her hand. She studied it briefly, then set it on the small table beside the bed. The coins stayed in the bag. For now. The next morning, she was up before Rowan. Coffee boiled low on the stove. The tin pot rattled softly as the heat built. She poured 2 cups this time, set one near the edge of the table. When Rowan stepped in, he paused. Not long, just enough to notice. He picked up the cup, turned it slightly in his hand, then took a slow sip. The steam curled upward between them. Neither spoke. But something had shifted. Out on the road, a dust trail rose in the distance. A rider, slow, deliberate. By the time he reached the gate, Elena was already standing on the porch. Sheriff Boone Carter swung down from his horse, boots landing firm against the dirt. He adjusted his hat, eyes moving from the barn to the house, then settling on Rowan. "Morning," he said. Rowan stepped forward, setting his cup aside. "Sheriff?" Boone's gaze slid past him, landing briefly on Elena. "Didn't figure you'd still be here," he said. Elena didn't answer. Rowan didn't look back at her. "She is," Rowan replied. Boone nodded slowly, like he was filing something away. "Town's been talking," he went on. "Some folks got questions." He let the words hang. The wind picked up just enough to stir the dust at their feet. Elena felt the weight of it then. Not the leaving, not the coming back, but what came after. And for the first time since she turned that horse around, she understood. Choosing to stay was only the beginning. The morning in town came dry and bright. Dust lifted slow along Main Street as wagons rolled past the general store. The wooden boards creaked under boots, the same rhythm that had been there long before either of them arrived. Elena stood near the hitching rail, her hands resting lightly at her sides. She didn't hold on to anything. No bag, no reins, just the quiet weight of the day settling around her. Rowan stood a few steps behind, not beside her, not in front. Just there. Sheriff Boone Carter leaned against the post outside Mrs. Dillard's shop, a folded paper in his hand. He tapped it once against his palm, then looked up. "Figure it's time we clear something up," he said. A few people slowed, then more. By the time Boone stepped forward, a loose circle had formed. No one said much. They didn't need to. Boone glanced at Rowan. "Word is you're keeping a woman here against better judgment." Rowan didn't move. "That so?" he asked. Boone lifted the paper slightly. "Town's got concerns. No record of a proper arrangement. No witness. No terms." His eyes shifted to Elena. "You staying out there by your own will?" The question sat in the air. No rush. No escape from it. Elena looked at Boone, then at the faces around him. Mrs. Dillard stood near the door, arms folded tight. A man by the water trough shifted his weight, eyes fixed on the ground. No one stepped forward. No one stepped back. Rowan didn't speak, didn't answer for her. Elena took one step forward. Just enough. "No one owns me," she said. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Not him. Not you." Boone's jaw tightened slightly. "That's not what I asked." "I stayed," she said. A small pause followed, the kind that lets words settle where they land. Boone studied her a moment longer, then looked past her to Rowan again. "You're not claiming her?" Rowan shook his head once. "No." Boone exhaled through his nose, the paper lowering just a fraction. "Then what is this?" he asked. Rowan glanced toward Elena, then back at Boone. "It's what she said," he replied. "Her decision." That seemed to hang longer than anything else. A murmur passed through the small crowd. Not loud, just enough to shift something. Mrs. Dillard turned slightly, her grip loosening on the edge of the door. The man by the trough lifted his head, then looked away again. Boone folded the paper in half, then again. "Well," he said, sliding it into his coat, "long as there's no complaint." There wasn't. He stepped back, brushing dust from his sleeve. "Just remember," he added, looking between them, "folks tend to watch what they don't understand." Rowan gave a short nod. Boone mounted his horse and rode off, the sound of hooves fading down the road. The circle broke apart not long after. People drifted back to their errands, their voices low, less certain now. Elena stood where she was. The space felt different, lighter somehow. Rowan stepped closer, stopping beside her this time. Not too close, just enough that she could feel the presence of him without needing to turn. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded once. They walked back toward the horses together. "No hurry." At the edge of town, Rowan paused, resting his hand on the saddle. "If you walk away again," he said, "I won't stop you." The words came easy, like something already settled. Elena looked at him. The lines of his face hadn't changed. Same steady look, same quiet way of standing in place. But something in the space between them had shifted. She held his gaze a second longer than before. "Then I won't need to," she said. Rowan nodded, not surprised. They rode out together, the road stretching ahead in a pale ribbon through the valley. Wind moved through the grass in low waves, bending it just enough to catch the light. By the time they reached the ridge, the sun had climbed high. Elena slowed her horse near the top, the same place she had stopped before. The canyon lay beyond, wide and silent. She looked at it briefly, then turned her horse away without thinking. Rowan watched her do it. Didn't say a word. They rode side by side back toward the ranch, not touching, not distant, just steady. At the crest of the hill, Elena glanced over. Rowan's eyes met hers for a moment. Not searching, not asking, just there. The wind lifted a strand of her hair, carried it back across her shoulder. She didn't brush it away. Below them, the ranch sat quiet in the afternoon light. The gate stood open, just as it had the night she tried to leave. Elena looked at it, then at the road behind them. No weight pulled her either way. No voice told her where to go. She turned back toward the house and rode on. She turned back toward the house and rode on. If you stood where she stood that day, with the wind at your back and nothing holding you but your own choice, what would you have done? Would you keep riding, chasing a freedom that feels wide but empty, or turn around, knowing that staying means trusting something you can't fully see yet? Elena didn't go back because she had nowhere else to be. She went back because for the first time in her life, she wasn't being pushed or pulled. She was choosing. And sometimes, that's what love really looks like. Not loud promises, not hands that hold you too tight, but a quiet place where no one closes the door on you. And still, you decide to stay. Rowan never asked her to belong to him. He gave her something rarer than that. He gave her the space to belong to herself. And in that space, something real had room to grow. Maybe that's the kind of second chance we all hope for. Not one that fixes the past, but one that lets us step forward without fear. If this story stayed with you, tell me, would you have ridden away or turned back? And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, quiet, human, and a little closer to the truth than we expect, you're always welcome to ride along with me again.